want to welcome everybody to the Radio Arizona RV and Education Maintenance Show for the Do-It-Yourselfer. And this is Eric Stark, your host. And today we're going to be talking about which type of RV sealants to use on your RV. We're going to talk about the roof, your windows, doors, hatches, all those little things that need to be sealed up to keep that water out. So we're going to dig into this. There's a lot of ground to cover here because there's a lot of different seals, different types of seals, different brands. They do different things. But before we really delve into it, I just want to remind everybody to check out Arizona RV Parts Center. We have a good selection of different exterior sealants for RVs on the website, and we also have sealants for interior and exterior. You know, the DAP brand is pretty popular. I would recommend using those for the interior, not so much as for the exterior, except for certain things. But check out our website, Arizona RV Parts Center, and you can just navigate to sealants or type in the keyword sealant, and there you go. It'll bring up the page, and everything will be there. It's not all inclusive. I've added another page to the website. If you scroll down on the left-hand side, it says Helpful RV Articles. There's a link there that says RV Exterior Sealants. And you click on that link, and it's going to take you to a page that actually has catalog pages from a distributor with the different brands of sealants that I'm going to be talking about today. So it's, I guess, the lazy way of filling out a page with a bunch of information. They're basically images of a catalog page. But they have part numbers, they have descriptions. There's no prices. Prices will always vary, but everything you need is there other than the prices. So it'll be a pretty helpful tool. You can actually print that if you wanted to. And of course, you know, if you're going to buy the sealants locally at an RV store, of course you can print it, show it to them, or at least take in the manufacturer part number and match it up to what they have. So anyways, check out Arizona RV Parts Center. And as always, go to radioarizonarv.com. You know, you can look at the episodes here, and we always have links to the website. Everything I talk about is linked to something, and every link goes to some place where you're going to learn more in most cases. So today, like I said, we're going to talk about using the sealants on the exterior of an RV. Now, let's just start with the roof. Actually, let's back up a little bit. Let me start with putty tape versus butyl tape. That seems to be a big discussion on the internet. Putty tape is what you want to use. It's going to have the butyl tape is what you're going to want to use. It's going to have the longest lasting life. And the key difference in it, as far as identifying, is butyl tape is stretchy. It gets kind of stringy when you go to tear off a piece. You know, you have to cut it more than you would tear it. Where putty tape just kind of breaks off. It dries out over time. Putty tape is not ideal for using on windows, doors, around vents, something that you want to seal and just leave for many, many years to come. Whereas using putty tape on a baggage door holder, the little plastic clips that hold your baggage door open, those things break off all the time. So if you have some putty tape, it's cheaper. You can probably replace that every 2 or 3 years, or maybe 4 or 5. It'll last that long. It'll be good for that. But for windows, doors, vents, things that you really want to keep that water out for long periods of time, definitely use butyl tape. And so with that being said, butyl tape is the tape of choice today. That's what we're going to be assuming is going to be used on everything. Like I said, you can use putty tape on some of the easier things like baggage door compartment holders, things like that. Maybe an entrance door holder, but butyl tape is really what we're going to be using as the base sealant for a lot of things today. So now let's start with the roof. You go up on your roof, you know, you either have a rubber roof, you have a metal roof, vinyl roof, you have different types of roofs, fiberglass. You might have a PVC roof, which is newer. PVC roof, hopefully you're not really having to do anything yet. They're that new. You know, you should be problem free for quite some time, but let's just stick with a rubber roof, you know, and apply the principles outward to a fiberglass roof or whatever you might have. You know, if you have to reseal a vent without taking it up, you know, you want to clean it real good and put on some lap sealant. You always want to use lap sealant on a roof. It's self-leveling lap sealant, I should say. And you want, and anything designed for rubber roof says that you can use on a rubber roof, you can use on a rubber roof. I always recommend Dicor. It's just a brand that I know and trust. You know, there's other brands out there, not saying they don't work, but Dicor is my brand of choice today. Could change tomorrow, but today it's my brand of choice. So the roof's kind of an easy thing because it's usually sealed so good from the factory, all you're going to do is maintain it. You know, occasionally you clean off around the vents, skylight, and you might add some more lap sealant. You know, if it's starting to crack or shrink a little bit, or, you know, you're getting a little leak, you might go up there and find a spot that could use a little more sealant. And very rarely do you have to take things apart to reseal them, like a vent. You know, you typically don't take a vent out to reseal it. And if you were to take it out because it was leaking and you wanted to replace it, you just put a new one in. Don't ever use an old vent, a 14 by 14 vent. By the time you get it out, it's going to be ruined. Just throw it away. But let's say you do that. You want to replace your 14 by 14 vent. So you're going to take off the old one and you want to clean up all the sealant that's on the roof. You're going to have to scrape it all off, get the majority of it up. You probably won't be able to get all of it up because the rubber won't allow you to. It's stuck to the rubber so good. But where the main seal is, you want to make sure you seal that properly. And that's where you're going to use the butyl tape. And you're going to put that on the vent itself, the base of the vent, and put it on the roof. Then, of course, you're going to tighten your screws. And it's going to squeeze out. You're going to scrape off the excess. Then you're going to put lap sealant over it. Now, if you're doing this at home, you can let it sit for overnight, let some more of that butyl tape squeeze out and scud off the excess the next day. But the main thing is to clean it up real good, have a nice clean surface to start with. So, you know, a roof vent's kind of an easy one. You're going to spend more time, just like on any of these things, cleaning it and preparing it for the seal, to reseal it. You don't want to skimp and leave some putty tape up there or butyl tape on the roof and think that you go over it, it's going to seal, because it probably won't. Everything has to be nice and clean, smooth, flat surfaces. So it's time consuming to do this right. And that's why when you take your RV to a shop and they replace your vents or your roof, it gets expensive because it's time consuming, because they own it. If it leaks after they're done with it, it's their problem, because you're going to take it back to them. And the same if you do it. If it leaks and you're done, you don't want to have to climb up on the roof and redo it. You want to do it right the first time. You remember, taking a vent off, even the one you just put on a week ago, now it leaks. You know, you're probably going to ruin that vent taking it off if you're not real careful. But you might save the vent and tear your roof. So you got to be very cautious in this. So do it right the first time. And now I made that sound pretty simple. Just scrape it off and put on the putty tape. But, you know, you really take the time. The tape needs to seal. Then it's going to squeeze out. You're going to use a plastic putty knife to cut off the excess. Like I said, wait overnight if you can. Cut off anything else that squeezes out. Then put on some lap sealant. And you still might have a boundary or a border of lap sealant, old lap sealant around the vent that you can't get off. And that's fine. Just make sure that where the vent sits down, that it seals good, that it's not hung up on the old lap sealant or anything like that, that you have a nice, flat, sealable working area. So the entire roof, you're going to use lap sealant on in most cases. You might have a fiberglass roof or a metal roof, and you'll use a sealant that'll work with that. You know, Dicor, not Dicor, but Dicor makes a product called Flow Seal that works on a variety of types of roofs. So that might be the sealant you're going to use on your roof. But if you have a rubber roof, Dicor is going to be the brand that I would recommend. And as I said, the different brands, the different manufacturers have lap sealants. They all kind of overlap on what they do. Other than Dicor, they stick with roof and roof-only type sealants. So now, let's talk about the sealants for a moment. We kind of get the picture on the roof. In fact, I've done 2 episodes on roof maintenance for rubber roofs, so you can go back to previous podcasts. It's in the early ones, the teens probably. I don't remember the number. I'm not going to look right now, but, you know, I've done the 2 episodes, and so it gets in a little more detail explaining that. And there's also links in those episodes to Dicor's website or PDFs that help explain a little bit more too. But now looking at the sealants, and what are you going to use a sealant for? Why are there different types of sealants for an RV? Because, you know, you think about an RV, many of the things that are put on it, if not all of them, are done with butyl tape or putty tape. Some manufacturers might use putty tape. It's not as good, but they might be using it. It's cheaper, half the price. So let's take a window, for instance, on a regular fiberglass side RV. You know, it's not aluminum. You know, it doesn't have the aluminum siding, so there's no ridges, peaks, and valleys. It's just a flat-sided RV. Now, if that window's leaking, the way to fix it is to take it out, completely out. So you're going to go inside, take the screws off the ring, bring the ring off, and you're going to have someone outside holding the window. It probably won't fall out because it's going to be stuck in from the sealants. But it never hurts to have someone holding it. And then you're going to take that window off very carefully. You're going to want to scrape around the edges, you know, to break that seal. You're going to take it out. And again, it comes to cleaning it up. Clean the window off, the window frame thoroughly, get all of the butyl tape or putty tape off, any silicone or sealant that's been put on there. Then you're going to do the same on the side of the RV, get it spotless. Then you're going to put that butyl tape on your window. You're going to go all the way around the frame. You're going to make sure it's nice, it's on there nice and tight. So when you pick the window up, it doesn't fall off, which it should just stick to it. You're going to stick it with the release liner on the butyl tape. Then you pull off the release liner. Then it's there. It's done. So when you put that window up, you want to have someone inside ready to put the ring on and get some screws started. And then you're going to want to put the screws on in a sequence, like a torque sequence. You know, don't start in one corner and work your way out. You want to go from side to side or top to bottom, just like you're torquing an intake manifold or a valve cover or a wheel you're putting on your spare. You go into a sequence. There's not real science to it, but when you do that, you're not tightening up the bottom. You know, it gets super tight. Then when you get to the top, it's kind of bowed out now, and your screws are pulling it in. It's kind of twisting the frame of the window. That's not what you want to do. That's not the goal here. So you're going to use butyl tape, and then you might be inclined, which a lot of manufacturers do this, to use a sealant across the top of the window. You go maybe down on each side 2 or 3 inches. That will help if that window has a problem leaking, you know, down the road. It's a security measure. Realistically, though, the butyl tape should seal that window for many, many years to come. But if you want to do that, it's just as a precaution, which really it's not that big of a deal to do. Put a bead of the sealant of choice, whether it's Geocell, Sikaflex, Hangs, Dicor, on the top of the window. And so that kind of leads us into what kind of sealant to use, because this is an application here where sealants are quite often used. They're used on the top of door frames, the top of window frames, the window on your entrance door. The frame might have this sealant across the top of it. All your moldings, exterior moldings have, whether they're vertical or horizontal, they usually have putty tape behind them. And then there's a bead of sealant of some kind. And manufacturers of RVs use different types of sealants for different applications, whether it's a window, a door, a vertical piece of trim, a horizontal piece of trim. So with that being said, you might contact the manufacturer of the RV or go to their website. I know some websites from the manufacturer, not a website in general, but from the manufacturer, will actually lay out in detail what sealants to use on what parts of the RV, whether it's the roof, the windows, the door. They'll actually name the brand and have a part number so you can go back and use those products. Or they'll tell you what it is, and you can find a similar product if you can't find the exact brand or you don't feel you need to use that particular brand, but you know what it is. You know what it's made of, what the components are, and how it functions and performs. Because manufacturers don't just buy anything in most cases. You know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, the quality of RVs. But it seems like one thing they do use quality products on is sealants for your windows, doors. And that's good. You know, it's good to hear that there's quality somewhere. Well, some might doubt that, but I think there is. You know, like I said, there's a lot of bad negative talk about the RV manufacturers and whether they really do quality work or not. But I think when it comes to sealing things, in most cases, they spend the time, they find the product that's going to work. They don't want a problem 6 months later. They don't want a problem 30 days later. They don't want a problem with the dealer, with, you know, all their stock leaking on a dealer's lot because they're in Oregon and it's raining, you know. They don't want to have to deal with that. They want to make sure the RV is sealed up tight in most cases. So you can check with the manufacturer, but in most cases, you're not going to need to do that. You know, I'm going to say that most RV stores that do service work, or service centers or dealerships that do service work, they're going to have their favorite brand that works for them. They're going to have the brand of choice. And it's probably going to vary depending on what region of the country you're in, whether it rains a lot, snows a lot, you have hot weather, just mild weather, a little bit of rain, but more sunshine. So it's just going to depend on where you're at. And so you're going to have to take that in consideration. Where do you spend most of the time RVing? If you're in Oregon, you're going to want to talk to a dealership in Oregon who's going to they might recommend a sealant that's absolutely great, that isn't widely known, but it works for them and they have a great track record with it. Or they might recommend a product that's very widely known that they absolutely love and it works well. So it's not always what you think you might need based on what you can find on the internet. And it might sound kind of odd, but there's a lot of experts in a lot of these RV service centers that know a lot more about this than you'll ever find on the internet. And, some websites like Amazon can't help you make a choice. They're going to have a product, maybe it's GeoCell, and, they have the Proflex version of it. And that doesn't mean that Amazon's going to be able to recommend it because Amazon doesn't know. They're not an RV store. Amazon doesn't know anything about what they sell. Those descriptions aren't even usually Amazon's. They're descriptions they get from other people or the seller. So Amazon's not an expert. So you want to go to an expert. eBay's not an expert. You want to go to an expert. And generally, the local service center is going to be the place where you're going to go to find that expert advice. So now that I've bagged on Amazon a little bit and eBay, and rightly so, because they're not in the RV industry. They don't support the RV industry. And I'm in the RV industry, and I support the RV industry, and I like to see people that are in this industry support it. Going a little rant here now, but a lot of companies, I was looking on the internet this morning, and someone who sells, who actually recommends a way to seal a window says to go to Amazon and buy it. And this particular website, I'm not going to say the name, they're kind of an RV insider. They're a go-to website for the consumers, but they're recommending Amazon, and Amazon's not part of the RV industry. Support the industry if you can. I get Amazon's cheaper, but almost all this stuff is just as cheap at an RV store, but also you get the customer service, you get the advice, you get the expertise when you buy locally from an RV store. Or even if you buy online, not locally from an RV store, you still get support. You get customer support like us. You can call and ask us questions. We're more than glad to help you out. And quite often the consumer has some great insight on the products that they're looking for and why they're looking for it. Okay, so now I'm done with that. Support the RV industry. That's the point, right? So anyway, this comes up quite a bit. That's why I'm going on or talking about the sealants, because people come into my store and the RVer wants to know what to use. How come this? How come that? How come their neighbor used this? And why don't we sell that? And really, you don't need to sell all the brands from the standpoint of an RV store or a service center. The brands that you prefer that work are all you need. You don't have to have 6 or 7 different brands. It's not like holding tank chemicals. You go into a Camping World and they got 30 feet of holding tank chemicals. They don't need that. And most RV stores don't do that. They might have 8 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet. It's just crossovers. Go with what works. And your RV service center is going to be able to help you with that. So essentially there's 4 brands on the market: Hangs, GeoCell, Dicor, and Sika, commonly known as Sika Flex. These are 4 of the most common sealant type brands. Some of them have a silicone mix in them, a butyl mix, but all 4 brands are very good at what they do, and there is some overlap there. Someone might prefer Hangs all the way through. They have 4 or 5 different products, and they might want to use that on their RV in the areas where it's designed for, and that's it. Other people might want to use Sika Flex, and that's it. Or they might use one Sika Flex product and one GeoCell product, or one Dicor, one Sika Flex. So that's why I have it all on the website, so you can take a look and kind of look at it and make an informed decision. Like I said, check with the local RV store. But the main thing you're looking for here, in all 4 of these brands, Hangs, GeoCell, Dicor, and Sika, all have these things in common with their product.